Welcome back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is the owner and lead chiropractor at the Source Chiropractic in Denver. Today's guest is Dr. Darren Murphy. Darren, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thank you, Quentin. Glad to be here and to share any and all inspiration that comes through on the podcast today.
For sure. So Darren, we're just going to jump right into things kind of with a bit of a conversational warm-up, I like to call it. The first question that I have for you is, how do you start your day? Do you have a specific morning routine or morning ritual that you like to stick to on most mornings?
I do, absolutely. That's a great question because I think that's something that is missing in and with a lot of people this day and age. And my morning routine has shifted dramatically from what I did really when I started 6 years ago. But nowadays, it's a combination of move, breathe, and meditate. Three very simple things, but I like to break those down. So the move is it's a combination of functional based movements, chiropractic based movements that help me warm my body up to serve and to adjust people throughout the day. The breathwork piece I've changed over the years, anything from doing what's an exercise called 49 breaths to like Wim Hof breathing, which I'm sure has been mentioned on this podcast before. And now I do something that one of my greatest friends and mentor, Dr. Brett Jones, created, activational breath work. And so depending on where I'm at and where I'm flowing, based on the day and where I'm at with my business, I can change and modify the type of breath work that I'm doing to alter the type of activation that I'm feeling within myself. And then I round it out with a 5 to 10 minute meditation, getting myself clear, opening up the intuition channels for serving people throughout the day, because in this artistic chiropractic practice that I run and operate here in the Sunnyside neighborhood of Denver, there's definitely an intuitive piece to it, and to be a healing facilitator, healing's not linear, and we'll probably talk about this later on here. And so I like to open myself up to all channels of information, and I feel that the meditation piece at the end of my morning routine really helps me do that. It's anywhere from a 25 to 45 minute routine based on the day. I do it first thing, and a new piece that I implemented this year is that I do not look at any kind of social media before I do my morning routine. Whereas in the past, I usually do a quick check-in, see what's happening, but now I don't.
So I want you just to elaborate a little bit on the reasoning behind you not looking at social media before you enter into this morning routine, because I know for me and a lot of people, social media is a big part of our lives. There's a lot of great things that we can gain from social media. There can be some negativity as well. But just for you personally, why have you made that switch in your morning routine of not checking social media before you enter into that routine?
Right, because I want to have my own thoughts be my own and come from me in my morning routine. I don't want to have external thoughts, external concepts or opinions or belief patterns impose on me before I go about the activational part of my morning. I want to make that my time. It's my sacred time to get myself ready for the day.
Perfect. Now, before I go on to the next question, one more little expansion in regards to the morning routine, because you kind of mentioned like 6 years ago is when you started to start implementing the morning routine. Why is the morning routine for you personally, Darren, so valuable and important in regards to you showing up, in terms of who you want to show up to help the people you want to help each day?
Like I said, it comes down to activation. You go to sleep, you go to a very parasympathetic state, the resting, the digesting, the theta state. But when you're awake, this is time for action. This is game time. This is where, me as a chiropractor, I'm giving my best gifts. And I have to have all of me online, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. And my morning routine allows me to do that and to show up as my best self the moment I step in the office. You see, and that's when the morning routine started for me, was when I started chiropractic school back in 2014. I got hooked up with a group that was then called Adjusting Ninjas. It's now called Kairos Training Culture. And that is something that I'm a lead facilitator in that group now, we preach big time, is the importance of that morning routine. And so that's where I learned all of these different strategies, and it's changed and it's morphed, to what it is now. but that's really where that started.
Perfect. All right. I appreciate you expounding on that. All right. So the second question, and actually for the next three, if there's more than one, please feel free to share.
Sure.
But do you have a favorite book, or is there a book that you like to gift often?
I do. It's called Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Marciniak. And she is a spiritual channel, and she brings through certain messages through this channel that she's developed. I highly resonate with the messages that she brings through. It's a spiritual book, and it's probably not for everybody based on the sources that it's coming through, I would imagine. But for the people that like to see me here at the office, or the people that I coach and train, it really resonates with a lot of people. As far as right now, what I'm reading is that I'm reading all of my past business notes from 2019 so that I can implement and really use the ones that are going to serve me best here in 2020. I'm involved with a chiropractic business coaching group called Kairos Business Mastery. It's the business wing of the chiropractic training program that I'm involved in as well, and that I teach and I coach and I train with. And so bringing all those lessons into 2020 is very big and important.
Cool. All right. Now, I like to preface this next question, which I'll give you the question, and then I want to give a little preface. So, favorite quote, mantra, or word. Now, for me and for all of us human beings, we have different seasons of life.
Sure.
So for the favorite quote, mantra, word, it could be maybe as we're entering into this new year, this new season of 2020, it could be a quote, mantra, word kind of currently, or it could be a quote, mantra, word from maybe a previous season. However you want to take that, it's yours to take.
Sure. I'd say my favorite quote right now is, I am because we are. That's a very important concept in Kairos training culture that I've mentioned before. And pretty much it's a tribal mentality. It's like we're not here as individual beings doing these individual things in it just for ourselves. We're in it for the tribe. We're in it for everybody. We're in it for the collective consciousness of teams, of tribes, of humanity to grow, advance, and evolve all at the same time. That does not happen when you're just in it for yourself.
Right.
It doesn't happen when you are, a man or a woman out on an island trying to go about it all by yourself. And so what we're finding is that a lot of companies and a lot of groups are returning to tribal ways of doing things, and that's what, KTC, Kairos training culture, is really, really big on, is the tribe, and so a way that I'm living that out in my own life is, I'm bringing on 2 new associates here at the chiropractic practice, because it's a tribe. It's a growing tribe of people that are constantly growing, advancing, and evolving at the same time, and people pushing me and me pushing them, and practice members showing up for their tribe, for their families, so that they can all get their needs met.
Perfect.
And if I had to go with one word right now, it's activate. The word activate really, really resonates with me at a very, very deep level. And I'll just go ahead and say this, in the spirit of being radically authentic. I have a spiritual practice. It's called solar channeling. When I glance at the sun, I see these, you could say they're interdimensional. You could see they're hieroglyphic type symbols out in what's called my third eye field. We all have a third eye that can be activated. Some are more dormant, some are activated. And then I draw these symbols and then I blow them up into large pictures. Some hang here in the office. And what these symbols do at a deep level is that they're activating parts of DNA. They're activating, latent parts, or, come on, why do we have all this supposedly latent or sleeping DNA? Well, I believe at one time it was active DNA. And so, for certain reasons, for certain purposes, is it to become more insightful? Is it to become psychic? Is it to become, have telekinesis, things like that? And, I use those certain activations to create a healing environment here in this practice. And so people will come in and say, God, what is it about this place? Why do I feel so good? And you haven't even performed a chiropractic adjustment on me yet. And that's because this space is very highly charged. There's a lot of intention that's been put into this space and into myself, you know. I mean, a pop culture word today is, you know, what is your medicine? I'm not talking like what are the drugs you take or what are the synthetic things you put into your body, but what is your greatest gift that you are giving to humanity? You know, that goes back to the tribal ways, like tribal medicine, tribal knowledge, you know. And so my greatest gift in medicine is the channeling of these sacred symbols, incorporating those energies and frequencies into my DNA, and then through the adjustment, I'm giving that medicine, that energy, that information to the people laying on my table.
I like it, man.
That's
cool.
that right now, at this very moment, Dr. Darren Murphy, that's the greatest gift I can give people. And then when people are like, what's your special something? What's your secret sauce? That's what it is.
Okay, so I wanna dig a little bit deeper in regards to what you just talked about, kind of like your secret sauce or your gift. So somebody that's listening to this, because I'm a huge proponent of us like kind of knowing like, you know, our why or, you know, the reason that we're here, all that stuff. It's super important. I don't think that we can reach our full potential or move in the direction of reaching our full potential as a human being without knowing our why or our purpose, things like that. So how does somebody figure out kind of like what their gift is, or how do they figure out what their why is, their purpose, whatever word you kind of want to insert in there? How does somebody begin to find out kind of like what their gift is to give the world and impact the world?
Sure. Well, first they have to be open to receiving what that is, or they have to begin, in my opinion, on the path to discovering what that is. Like if you have no intention or desire to want to live a quote unquote purposeful life or a life with meaning, then you're never going to find something that you're not looking for, you know? And so really dating back to 2004, 2005, every day I held a very strong and powerful intention that I want to create massive waves and massive ripples and massive consciousnness changes throughout humanity in my lifetime. And I held it. I didn't know how it was going to manifest. You know, first I thought it was going to be as an orthopedic surgeon. That's what I was, you know, I studied pre-med in college, and then boom, that didn't work out. So I was like, oh, damn, what now, you know? And then life has a funny way of working things out, and then chiropractic came into the view years later, and this is where I'm at now, but that doesn't mean that's where I'm going to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years. I continue to hold and maintain the energy of creating massive changes and reorganizations in consciousness. And so the first step, which I think is the most important step, is holding that intention and not having any expectations to how that will manifest in one's life. Because it will change.
Right.
When you look at some of the most, you know, impactful people in this world, they weren't doing 20 years ago what they're doing today. Right. And absolutely. Where they're going to be in 10, 15 years won't be where they're at today. And so I think that is the first and most important step, is to hold an intention for a massive vision.
Now, okay, so I also want to kind of like just discuss, because you said that you've kind of had this, you know, this desire since like 2005, 2006, around that time, of just like massively impacting and helping others. Where did that kind of within your heart? Where did that come to be? How did you come across that?
It's just innate.
Okay,
it's inborn. Okay. I've always had this desire to play on a big level, you know. And it's just, I can't say, oh, it came from my mom or it came from my dad or, you know, came from something I did or didn't do. It's just always been in here, you know. And so it's nothing I've had to go find. It's just, you could say from birth, you could say from the divine, from source intelligence, and it's destiny or whatever to work its way through me for me to be a channel out into this physical third dimensional reality. And there are others like me, and people are realizing these gifts that they have and developing them. That's the key, is you got to develop these gifts. You know, and people are like, you know, I'll be at a seminar and be like, oh man, how'd you learn how to adjust like that? I'll be like, I trained my ass off to learn how to adjust like that. I had zero adjusting skill when I got to school, you know, but through obsessive training, literally like didn't go to sleep without training, woke up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to go train before school even started, so that I could develop and hone that gift to give it to a mastery type level. You know, we talk about this concept that mastery is not a destination, but only a journey and a path. You're never going to get there, but you can always be on the path. And so in the chiropractic realm, my intention is to always be training the art of chiropractic, the art of the adjustment, so that it can be given and applied and connected to a person in ways never before experienced.
Cool. All right. So the last question here is part of kind of the conversational warm-up, Darren. Do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast?
You know, I'll be straight up and honest, I don't really listen to podcasts.
Okay, cool.
I know a lot of people do it on commutes. I live 4 or 5 minutes from the office, and that's another little bit of time that I get to completely focus before I get to the office. I've just never really been to podcasts. You know, I enjoy being on podcasts.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just never a way I've really looked to allocate my time.
Okay, so I'm gonna no pun intended, adjust the question a little bit then. So is there maybe somebody in regards to kind of like a mentor, that somebody that's listening to this, that maybe you listen to them, maybe a motivational speaker like on YouTube or Instagram? Is there somebody out there that the listeners could say, hey, you know what, like I really appreciate what Darren's sharing, I want to check this individual out?
Sure. Dr. Brett Jones, Sacred Masculine podcast. Without a doubt, your time will be well spent listening to Dr. Brett Jones. If you're in the chiropractic realm, or if you want to investigate more about what it means to be an artful chiropractor, look at the Artful Chiropractor podcast.
Perfect. All right.
Episode 49, I do believe that's mine as well.
Perfect, man. Perfect. All right. So I want to kind of move into your backstory a little bit.
Sure.
So if you don't mind sharing with myself and the 127 Fit podcast listeners, Darren, where did you grow up? What did those younger years look like? Were you involved in sports, extracurricular activities? Kind of once we get up to the high school years, we'll kind of stop there and then we'll move on.
Sure. Yeah, born and raised in Casper, Wyoming, the real Windy City. It's not Chicago. It's Casper, Wyoming. I had an amazing childhood. I grew up Catholic, so I grew up with a spiritual sense. I always kind of had an inkling that that really wasn't for me, but I was cool to go with it, and mom and dad were into it. I had a very active lifestyle, did all the sports except hockey. I was like, how am I doing football but not hockey, Mom? That was really kind of weird. I had a lot of orthopedic injuries as a kid, from broken arms to torn tendons and ligaments and broken knees and dead bone, necrosis, things like that. And that's really what drove and inspired me to want to be an orthopedic surgeon, is that I had been put back together by these incredibly skilled doctors. I could do that too. And I was like, I really love wood shop, and then I love science. Well, why don't I just do glorified wood shop that works on bodies and call it orthopedic surgery? And so football had a lot of injuries there, but by the time I got to the end of high school, I was a pretty accomplished athlete, all-state lineman. I was this mountain of a guy, 6'5", almost 300 pounds, and then lost all the weight. The years later, I'm down to 200. And so it's like, those years were great. I mean, the funnest time of my life was in high school. I loved all the people where I grew up, and then on to CU Boulder.
Cool. Just touch on kind of like siblings, but then also after that, what type of an environment did your parents create for you and the rest of the family?
Sure. So I got two brothers, Michael and Sean. They both live here in Denver. And then Mom and Dad, they were big on communication. They were big on communication and trust. One of the greatest things and parenting lessons that I learned from them is that, how they raised us, especially in high school. High school is a time to go out and experience all sorts of things. But there was the rule that, if you screw up once, whether that means you get in a wreck or you get a DUI or whatever, your fun's done. And so they gave us some loose reins to be able to go out and to experience things, but there was always that high level of trust that they had in us. They let us go use and drive the boat, do whatever we wanted, but it was always, where are you going, what are you doing, who are you with, things like that. And we always kept things above board. There was no hiding anything. There was no running away from anything. And that's how I'll raise my kids someday, is with a very just like brutally honest, authentic way of helping people go. Like high school is a transition from childhood to kind of adulthood,
right?
And if you treat people with that level of respect, they'll give it back. And I have great relationships with both of my parents. In my mid-20s, I went back and I lived in the basement for 3 years, which that's a whole nother podcast. How to be of service to your parents in your 20s,
right?
And get to know your parents again. But I loved how I was raised.
Cool,
it was really good.
Now, you and I have met, and we had a great conversation back in 2019 before this podcast conversation, and we talked about some of the religious experiences and things like that. And I would really love to just kind of have you share a little bit, Darren, about, you've already mentioned you grew up Catholic and you kind of had this feeling that this maybe wasn't the spirituality that was necessarily for you. But I want you just to share, if you don't mind, a little bit about your spiritual journey, because I think that ties into kind of your morning routine, and it's really a huge, powerful part of who you are as a human being to this day, and the type of healing you do through the chiropractic work. So just touch on kind of that Catholicism, that experience a little bit when you're younger, and then just kind of how you've stepped into your own personal spirituality.
Sure. God dang, that's a great question. There's a lot of meat on that bone. I grew up Catholic. It was conservative. It was go to church every week. And it was more or less. Catholicism to me is a top-down kind of process. You got your popes, your bishops, your priests, your clergy people, and you have the parishioners, the people in the pews on the bottom. And once I got into college, I did the Christian groups and all of that, and that was a furthering of my spirituality. But really, what I came to discover and figure out is that I do not need to connect to spirit, to God, to Jesus, whoever or whatever you want to call it, through someone else. I don't need that. I don't need a priest to say, oh, hey, you've had First Communion, or hey, you've been confirmed. You can now connect to God. I don't believe that one single bit. I believe we all have the innate inborn ability to connect to spirit, whoever or whatever that means to you, at any time, any place, with any intent. But that took years and years to develop. The Catholic tradition is very traditional. You do the same thing every Mass. You act a certain way. You do this, 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 and this. And that's fine. That's great, that's cool. But over time, I needed more freedom in my expression. I needed the ability to tap in to Source when I wanted. Not just Sunday when a priest was, facilitating a service. But that, I had to go through those stages to learn that. And then in my years beyond college, I began to read, Tibetan texts, and to just begin to be exposed to all different types of spirituality. And I lost the connection to Catholicism. I didn't go to church anymore. And in that, I was able to be exposed to so many different belief systems and really kind of find myself to where I am now. And if I had to sum it up in any simple concept, it's that to be inspired is to be in spirit. And so I want to constantly be inspired. And so the morning routine, doing the spiritual work here at the office, through working with people on various types of levels, that's in spirit. You don't have to be in a meditation to be in spirit. When I walk into my doors, I'm in spirit. This, there is spirit manifest in this office and throughout most of the day for me. And so I couldn't do that in the Catholic tradition, but I believe that the work I do and we do, and the messages that a lot of us are sharing is one of just connection. Like connection. That's why I say, I connect before I correct. I connect with someone at a deep level before I go and I make an adjustment. And I think the more people connect with themselves first in their daily lives,
Absolutely.
to connect with other people in their daily lives, we're going to have a much better society.
Cool.
You know? And so that was a long-winded answer, but I think it shows some insight into, where I started in my spiritual world and then really where I am now.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that journey.
Yeah.
So we left off, you went to CU Boulder, and so you kind of touched on a little bit of kind of like the Christian experiences or the Christian organizations there that you had, but overall, what was that college experience for you at the University of Colorado at Boulder?
For me, I would say it was one of the tougher 4 years of my life. I was very, very focused, very dedicated with academics. I mean, I was in a rigorous program, pre-med, with minors in neuroscience and applied business. I didn't even get to Red Rocks my whole 4 years at CU Boulder. When people were going and doing the partying and skiing and boarding and concert scene, I was crushing the books. I was crazy, obsessed, and dedicated to be and get into medical school and be that orthopedic surgeon that was fixing people. But it was tough, and I did it was called Christian Challenge. That was one of the groups I was in back then. Like I said, that was a step in my spiritual development. That was knowing that I could connect at any time and that I didn't need a priest or someone to facilitate that connection. But ultimately, it didn't work out. I didn't get into medical school. My last semester in college, I got a rejection letter from every school for each consecutive week in that semester.
Wow.
So it was like just getting hit with a sledgehammer that whole last semester. And then, thankfully my brothers had a cool business venture that we went into after school that I learned. I really got my teeth knocked out, no pun intended, in a business sense.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that those 4 years happened because I had all the prerequisites. I literally had everything that I needed for when I applied to chiropractic school. It was an easy acceptance.
Right.
I had the science, I had the neuroscience, I had the business, and I was a prime candidate. And so even though I couldn't see what the future was really kind of molding me into, it all makes sense now looking 2020.
Right.
It's like the universe was just prepping me to become a chiropractor.
Okay, what was that? Because it sounds from you just sharing like you were just very intensely focused on the academics, which you stated. So all these rejection letters, for medical school at that time, what did that do to you? And then kind of how did you, kind of change your perspective? Like, okay, like I was so dedicated, I was so focused, I was giving all of my attention and energy, everything into becoming, this orthopedic surgeon. But then that doesn't happen. How did you respond internally and just kind of in your life overall with that experience?
Yeah, it was crushing in the moment. Like literally everything, all the vision, all the intention setting, all the work, all the late nights, it was passing away.
Right.
It was literally like a ship passing in the night. Like that Matt Carney song, Ships in the Night.
That's what I was thinking
of. I was just like, yes, it was devastating. There were lots of tears. There was so much question, like God, how could you do this to me?
Yeah.
But really, the biggest lesson that I learned is that some doors close so that bigger doors open. And that bigger door to me didn't open for another 5 years. But I kept holding that intention. I'm here to play big. I'm here to serve big. I'm here to help and advance and evolve and reorganize human consciousness. And I never let that go. And then years later, chiropractic came into my world, and teaching, coaching, mentoring, through Kairos training culture came into my world. Boom, opening this practice. And I continued to hold the energy and the vibration of that, but on a much more magnified level. And so, yes, it was tough. But for anyone listening, it's like you can experience great and grave disappointments. But if you hold a bigger vision and a bigger intention, but not have an expectation to how it's going to manifest, it will manifest. There's I have no doubt about that in my mind.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to, just because there's a lot of things I want to get into in regards to kind of like where you're at today. I kind of want to just speed up your personal story a little bit. So we'll kind of move past kind of like what you did with your brothers and things like that after college. Let's just talk about your decision to go into chiropractic, kind of what was the impetus behind that? What was that experience like? And then we'll move on from there.
Sure. I mean, my brother, Sean Murphy, was a huge resource for me and an impetus to get me on this chiropractic path. Okay. I mean, from late 2010 to 2013, I was living in my parents' basement without really any real direction. You know, I was, I call it my awakening phase. I would hang out in the basement, and I was being coached and led on specific awareness books to read. You know, like, we live in a society that is cloaked in mystery, you know, and I wanted to dive into those mysteries, ancient texts. You know, why are things the way that they are? And if you're listening to this podcast without me going into too much detail, you probably get my drift. Like, how does healing really happen? How does, you know, well, what's Big Pharma all about? Like, what's the racket going on? You know, how is the Federal Reserve created? Like, how are things the way they are? But I was being prepared. And then, you know, Sean kept saying, Darren, you're a chiropractor. You're a chiropractor. You just don't know it yet. I'd be like, oh, BS, man. Like, no way. I'm not doing another $250,000. I'm not doing 3.5, 4 years of my life. Like, I'm done. I'm over that. Okay. Well, every 6 months for about 2 years, he kept saying, when are you applying to chiropractic school? And lo and behold, I got to a place in life where I'm like, I'm ready. I'm just ready. And I had started to be adjusted. I felt the changes in my own body. I had a lot of injuries, obviously, growing up, and my body had compensated, and it was shutting down in certain places. And I was brought back. I was brought back online, so had a lot of buy-in with chiropractic because I had experienced it for myself. And between applying, getting accepted, and starting, it was 3 months. Wow. So the universe just moved super fast. And to me, that's how I know when I'm in flow state and I'm on the right path, is when things move forward with incredible ease and zero restriction.
Cool.
Yeah.
So where did you go to chiropractic school at? And then kind of what was your experience within that type of a educational system or setting? Because I believe where you're at today is probably quite a bit different than maybe some of that educational experience you had. So where'd you go to chiropractic school? And then kind of what was that experience like actually in the educational sense of that school?
Sure. I mean, to me, and this is through another, you know, universal connections, you know, my brother introduced me to someone at the Denver Athletic Club who recommended Life Chiropractic College West. He knew the president from 20 years ago. I hadn't even heard or seen of it. And so I got directed to Life Chiropractic College West out in Hayward, California, of all places. And that's where I went. I did my 3.5 years there. That for me, it was the best school because it was a very philosophically based school. And it wasn't boom, 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 rigid. It had the ability to attract a student body that was incredibly diverse, not just in, you know, cultural backgrounds, but in spiritual beliefs as well. And so as far as school goes, you know, how I coach and I train on this is that you have an academic route, which is created by the CCE, the Council on Chiropractic Education. All chiropractic schools have to abide by that and follow that. Those are the prescribed academic, you know, requirements to become a chiropractor. In my experience, there exists an outside parallel curriculum where I learned pretty much how to do all the adjustments that I know how to do. For me, I didn't really resonate with how I was learning to adjust in school because they didn't focus on connection before correction. It was just go in, throw some forces around, whack and crack some bones, and move on. That's not how I practice, right? So I wanted to sit at the feet of the masters, the people that have been in this profession and of this profession for 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years, and watch how they serve people and how they adjust people. And it was so rich and so fulfilling to me to learn from them. Yes, it was more expensive. Yes, it took a sacrifice in time, energy, and effort to be doing a whole nother school outside the academic part. But the richness of our profession lies out there. And so I'm always encouraging people who feel stuck or angry or uninspired to seek inspiration outside of school where the masters teach. Where the masters teach. That's really where it is. And these are the people that I went through school with, and that this is where I teach now. I teach, level 1 and level 2 seminars for Kairos training culture outside, and we're able to get to incredible depths of connection and inspiration. And so that when people leave these seminars, they're like, oh, I can breathe for the first time. Like, I've had my eyes open to the bigness of what it is that we do. Above, down, inside out healing.
Okay, so I would love to have you share a little bit more about this statement that you just said, connection before correction. And the word connection, just in our conversation, up to this point, you've used the word connection multiple times. So obviously it's a very important word. It's very important in your life. It's a very important aspect of my life, just obviously with the podcast and doing it in person as opposed to Skype or something like that. So what does it mean to you when you say connection before correction?
Sure. To me, it means a deep level of acknowledgement of someone. Typically, or how it's taught in schools is, person goes face down, boom, 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 send them out the door. No. In my belief, that's not how people should be seen and served through chiropractic, right? So connection is taking the time to see someone for who they are and understand what their needs are at an incredibly deep level before doing any kind of adjustment, And so taking the time to center, like for me, before every adjustment, I center myself, I get clear. I take the time to ask in my mind and in my brain, how can I help free the person on the table, not fix them? I'm not in the business of fixing. People fix themselves. I'm in the business of freeing people. And so that's a very deep and profound question to ask before I adjust. And what I do is I allow intuition to come in and guide me. Like, I know where people want to go and get out of pain and regain function. But like I said, I'm in a place where I'm in spirit and I'm inspired. So I'm led to certain areas of certain bodies so that they can experience more freedom. And if I don't take the time to connect first to myself and then to them before going and putting adjustments in, it's not going to be near as fruitful and beneficial for the person on the table. So I ultimately do it so that they receive the best results as possible. Because when I come from a place of personal connection to me and then a personal connection to them, the results are far, far better. And let's be honest, people want results.
Absolutely.
That's why I do what I do, is to help people get results.
So kind of in alignment with the connection before correction, you've already kind of talked about the space that we're having this podcast conversation in right now, the location of your practice. What goes into, or how do you kind of create the space or create an environment that is going to, free somebody and it's going to, kind of help them get what they want in regards to the service they're paying you for?
Sure. It comes down to understanding the concept of a conditioned space versus a deconditioned space. I learned this concept from one of my, dearest mentors, Dr. John Martinez. He's a chiropractor here in Denver, in that a conditioned space is some room or office or whatever where the rules of that office are very much outlined. The expectations are written down, and people know exactly this, exactly that, and it's typically based off of certain belief systems or ways of thinking. In my opinion, this office is very deconditioned, meaning that spirit is alive in this place. I acknowledge that, yes, we're here in the physical, but we are non-physical beings that have chosen to be here to live a life through the physical, right? To experience and learn lessons and evolve in consciousness and things like that. And so, yes, I make adjustments. Yes, I facilitate, but I don't have 100% expectation on how that is going to manifest in people's systems. I don't have strictly held this way, that way, or the highway belief systems on healing. I believe above, down, inside out, and that as long as I'm coming from a heart-centered, connected place and I'm serving people at the highest level with mastery level adjustments, that they will be integrated into the neurospinal tensional frame of people, that they will get the results that they want. And so condition versus deconditioned. For example, a Catholic church is a very conditioned space. Very conditioned. There's a certain set of rules. There's a certain set of ways to act and be in that space. Here, this is a space of freedom. Every time I'm asking, how can I free your system? How can I help you become a more vibrant, expressive being that is extracting the most goodness, not just out of the enjoyment of your body, but out of life? So do you get
Absolutely.
And that's big, and that's why I'm experiencing the results in the people that I'm experiencing here. Is because it's deconditioned.
So I know in our previous conversation we talked on some level. I remember us talking about, kind of like, because I remember myself mentioning, like, sometimes I can be naturally kind of like uptight, you know what I mean? And I think we were talking about maybe some of my like conditioned beliefs and thoughts and stuff that I was, breaking through in 2019 and beyond. So in regards to kind of like limitations, now I know there's like limitations like kind of like within our body, but more specifically, Darren, I'm talking about kind of like, those limiting beliefs, those, conditioned thoughts that we all have from birth, from childhood. Like what have been some of those limiting beliefs or limiting thoughts, some of those limitations within your own life that you've had to kind of work through and break through to be the individual that you are presently?
Sure. I mean, for me, I had to literally break through a lot of physical issues growing up. I mean, I had a lot of breaks, a lot of torn things, and it took a certain willpower to come back from each one of those. But over the years, as my understanding about healing and how the body stores energy from experiences, I had to have those energies to reach more and more levels of freedom. And then it had to get my body to a space where it was not crumpling, but it was full of tension, it was full of stress. My spine was bending in ways that was not beneficial ultimately. So boom, chiropractic comes in. Like my body, my life was leading me to a place where I had to be to understand the power of what it was that I was about to become, And so seeing these injuries and these things as actual blessings and things to learn lessons from, once I really resonated with that type of thinking, I was able to go from a state of blame and questioning to a place of gratitude and acceptance and honoring of what had led me to where I am today. And so, I mean, I think the more people can get from a state of blame and expectation to a state of gratitude and forgiveness and allowing and ease, life can take on a whole new richness and meaning.
Awesome. I want to talk about words. So in regards to kind of like tying into this environment or this space that you're creating to allow freeing to happen, in regards to and allowing just people to just feel better and be better. How do you approach the words that you speak to yourself and the words that you speak to people and just kind of put out there into the world?
Sure. Well, one is that I don't use minimizing words. All right.
Okay.
I really try not to use minimizing words.
What does that mean?
So like a little or kinda or maybe somewhat, sort of, So what I do or what I look to do here is speak with as much certainty as possible, because I am very certain about what takes place here in this office. And I believe if people can speak with more conviction and certainty about what it is that they do and what it is that they believe, that's where partnerships and creativity and teamwork and ultimately this tribal mentality and way of living can come back into society. For example, like people work with me because I'm certain about what I do, and I'm certain about what I do is because I've felt it. Like I've felt the power of what it is that I do, and I know that I've put the time in and the training in, and will continue to do that for the rest of my life. Like training doesn't stop. You don't get to, and you know this with your own body and people that you work with, it doesn't just stop. It can change, and it can look many different ways. Training can be meditation. Training can be physical. Training can take a lot of different forms. And so knowing that can happen is very, very, very huge. I also, and what's something that makes this practice different is that I speak on the level of, for example, instead of what's hurting you today, what part of your body could use more expression today? What part of your body could be more optimized today? Instead of, well, what's holding you back today? You know, what's the main limitation for you today? So it's really where are you wanting to facilitate people? In what direction are you wanting to facilitate them in? And for me, it's one of ultimate health expression, doing what you want, when you want, where you want, and with whom you want, and not being held back by your physical body.
Right.
You know, but ultimately, if you look at the richness of the chiropractic philosophy, which is incredibly rich. Look up, B.J. Palmer 33 Principles, that there is a universal intelligence in all things, continually giving to it all of its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. That's what the profession is built on. Like, damn. Like, that's profound. Like, there is a universal wisdom in all things. There is a God, Christ consciousness in all things that maintains and supports everything. We live in a field of intelligence. And there is a field of intelligence called innate intelligence in the human body. And my job is to bring that out and have it be as expressive as possible. Like, that's living with purpose, like I'm so lucky. I'm lucky that chiropractic found me through my brother, Sean. Right. And that I was just open enough, or you could say I was in enough of a rut to really do anything at the time to pursue it.
What do you say to people? I've been going to chiropractor since I was a little kid, and I've had different experiences with different chiropractors, and being a personal trainer and just having a lot of interaction with people. Some people are just completely support chiropractic work, and they have a chiropractor and it's great. And then I also hear a lot of people that are very hesitant about chiropractors. I've never been to one. I'm like, whoa, how have you never been to a chiropractor? But everybody's kind of got their own journey, their own story. What do you say to that person that's maybe listening to this and they've never been to a chiropractor, or they're skeptical, or they've had a bad experience? How can you kind of just encourage that person to maybe step back into seeing a chiropractor, or searching out the right type of chiropractor for what they need?
That's really important. What you said right there is that there are hundreds of recognized techniques under the chiropractic realm or within the chiropractic bubble. So me, the type of chiropractic I use, can look very different from the person down the street or in the neighborhood over. Some ways that chiropractic is applied is beneficial for some people. Other techniques or practices are beneficial for other people. Sometimes you need a deep, what's called an osseous or a structural force to really reorganize the matter in the human body. Other times, maybe if you've had some serious trauma in your life, you need more of a light touch, energetic, network spinal analysis type of adjustment, which is still very impactful and very profound. It's just experienced different in the human body. And so instead of saying no to chiropractic altogether, I would say, instead of passing that judgment, I would ask oneself, what do I need? What type of care do I need to, one, get me out of pain, two, help me regain some type of lost or forgotten function, and three, this is the big one, this is the big idea, is that how do I maximize and optimize my function and state of being through chiropractic? That is done through different ways. And so know that chiropractors are not all the same. Everybody has unique training. Everybody has unique business practices. Everybody has a unique way of applying and giving their art. Some are more intentional than others. Some are much more trained than others. And so it's really a discovery process for oneself to discover the practitioner that they feel best with and have the most bonding and rapport with, but ultimately ones that they get the results with that they want. And so, just while we're on a public venue, it's people say, I'm afraid you're going to break my neck. People say that. People believe that chiropractors can break necks. Well, here's a little tidbit. All the Hollywood stuff, all the Jean-Claude Van Damme stuff, that is completely Hollywood. It is completely fake. No human can break another person's neck. It takes about 500 pounds, it takes about 25,000 pounds of force. I was off a few degrees there. 25,000 pounds of force to break a neck. Humans can only generate, the strongest humans, about 500 pounds of force. So orders and orders of magnitude away from really even being able to do that. So when you see someone's head spin on a movie and you hear a bunch of crap, no.
Okay.
That is absolutely not true. I have to dispel that myth because that keeps people from getting care.
Yeah.
That keeps that belief system in Hollywood and the messages they propagate keeps people from care, which ultimately keeps people from healing and getting better. And so every chance I get, I dispel that.
Okay, cool. I appreciate that. That's good because I was just around somebody here recently and I was asking them about chiropractic work and they had shared something kind of similar to what you just talked about and so I appreciate you sharing that. I want to talk a little bit about the business side of things, right? So just share a little bit with myself, Darren, and the listeners, kind of like, once you graduated from chiropractic school, what was that process or what did that journey look like for you to get kind of like, fresh out of school? I'm sure you were super excited and this is a fresh new journey to where kind of you're at today, where you just recently, I believe last year, opened up the practice right here. What did that look like? What was that process? What was that journey? What were maybe some of the ups and downs to now being your own, kind of like having your own practice or business?
Sure. Once again, a lot of meat on that bone. We'll distill the essence of that question, and that is this. Yes, when you graduate school, you're pumped, you're excited, but you're also, in a sense, traumatized. Because what you've done is you've just invested or borrowed or whatever a ton of money to the tune of about $250,000.
Yeah.
You've invested 3.5, 4 years of your life. You've sacrificed nearly everything, sleep, relationships, whatever, you name it. And you need to recover from that trauma of school. And so I learned a lesson. I started 2 days after graduation. That was way too fast. It was way too fast. But one of the smart things that I did was that I chose to do an associateship, which means work with and for another chiropractor, to do more of a business-focused associateship. I had done a lot of chiropractic training through school. Like I said, I was obsessive. I did 50, 60 plus seminars. I was reps for a lot of docs, and so I had a lot of outside training. I had a good chiropractic product to serve people with. But I didn't know the business of chiropractic. I didn't know how to communicate what it is that we actually do and then have a transaction of money take place. Like how do you organize the paperwork? How do you create a flow, a day one, a day two, and how do you communicate the value of what it is that we do and then keep a good schedule so that people aren't in here sitting on a bench for half an hour or an hour before they even get adjusted. People come in, they get the goods, and they go on with their lives, right? And so it was at the Source Chiropractic in Oakland. Dr. Brett Jones is the chiropractor, the owner of that. And I was there for 20 months. And while I was there, I learned the business of chiropractic. Yes, I served, and I love that. And the people at Oakland were great. But I was there to learn the business of chiropractic. And so it got to a point where I'm like, I'm ready. I'm going to go be an owner. And Brett and I, we had the conversation going like, let's go open up a Source in Denver because I so wholeheartedly believe in this brand and how we communicate and really the type of results that we get in a space like this. And so, it's not a franchise. Think of it more of like a brother or a sister kind of office. He owns that office. I own this office. We're very much connected. We talk every week. And everyone gets better and heals from there. But yeah, being a business artist is just as important as being a chiropractic adjusting artist. It's the wedding and the marrying of the two that I believe really creates a successful practice.
I want you to just touch on what you just said in regards to being a business artist. What does that?
Sure.
What does that mean? Because I call myself like a wordy. I love words. I'm very intentional in regards to the words that come out of my mouth, the words that I speak to myself, all that type of stuff. And so there's a few words that continue to come up in our conversation, and they are because they're important to you, and I know that you're very particular in how you speak to yourself and others. So explain this word artist, business artist, kind of like what is that? Why are you using that term?
So historically, in our profession, there are a lot of really, really great adjusters. They can give an incredible, body and soul shifting adjustment, but they don't know how to get paid for it because they're the pure creative artist and the applier of the adjustment, which is great, amazing, and awesome. But all too often, those chiropractic artists do not stay in business for that long because they do not communicate what it is that we do. They do what we do very, very well, but they don't bring in enough people to support a practice. So ultimately, they're not able to give their best gifts because they are not able to bring. New people is the lifeblood of any practice. You have to have them. You have to have them, especially when you begin. And so being able to get out into the community, to do the talks, to receive the referrals, to become a magnet and an attractor and hold an incredible space for people to come and to see and to find you. And so being a business artist is someone who can do the communication and who can bring in enough people to support a practice and pay the people and keep the lights on and do all of that, but ultimately be abundantly rewarded for what you're able to do. We are able to achieve through chiropractic what a lot of people wish they could do, but they achieve it with drugs, surgery, needles, or what we call pills, potions, and lotions. We do it naturally. All I need is my two hands. That's it. I don't have to have a table. And to be able to do that is an incredible gift. But I have sacrificed a lot to be able to do that. And so to have a requisite amount of monetary and energetic exchange and to live the life I want to live while still serving at a high level is very, very important. I think, does that give some
Absolutely.
clarity?
Yep, that's great clarity.
And that's not just chiropractors. That's all other types of healers and artists and creatives, because a lot of times people are so involved in the creative aspect of what it is that they do, they forget that there's a business to run, and that you got to have monetary things coming in,
right,
to be able to create the platform to do what it is that you do.
For sure. Now, before we kind of move off the business side of things, before we turn on the mic, you had mentioned you opening up this practice with cash, not going in debt, and you kind of mentioned a lot of people, they go in debt and all this type of stuff. Kind of share with us, Darren, how you did that. I'm sure there was probably a lot of discipline in that, but how did you do that, and what did that provide for you, opening up a new business, trying to bring new people in to heal them, to free them and all that? How did that help you start off on the right foot in the right direction, being debt free, paying cash to open up this location?
Yeah, it really started with a very adverse and averse attitude towards being in debt. I don't because ultimately debt is control. Debt is financial control. You can even go as far as saying financial slavery. I know it might be a bit of a stretch, but it is, in my opinion. And so I was going to do what I had to do to not have to go and to do that, because I knew that I was going to open my own practice someday. I knew that people religiously go out and take out 30, 40, 100, whatever, a huge, massive number of loans to open up a practice. And I'm like, there has to be another way. So what I did when I graduated school and I started working at the Source in Oakland, I set out a 2-year plan to save up enough money to move on, live on for 6 months to a year, and open up my practice on $25,000 to $30,000.
Wow.
So what I did was, I pretty much said, here's the minimum amount of money that I need to survive a month. So I added up all my bills, whatever. I think that number was $2,800. To live in the Bay Area on $2,800 a month was freaking magical.
Right.
Like, I still look back, I'm like, how the heck did I do that?
Yeah.
And like, I did it. And so for almost 2 years, I lived on $2,800 a month. No thrills, no frills, like still driving my truck of 16, 17 years that I got back in high school, living close to the practice, but like serving big. And so, I mean, I was able to make more than that every month. Everything I did went into savings. There's nothing extravagant. I wasn't out buying all these fancy new clothes or whatever. I lived a rather Spartan lifestyle because I had a plan. Mm-hmm. And so by the time I left Oakland, within that first 2 years, I was able to save 80 grand.
Wow.
80 grand in 2 years. And so what that shows is that, like, but I was on a really great associate contract at the Source in Oakland, and that's the same one that I'm using here for the 2 new incoming docs, Dr. Seth and Ryan. And so I was handsomely rewarded for what I was able to do, but I was also contributing, good commissions to that practice out there.
Absolutely.
So I was giving, loving, and serving out of my own abundance, but it was definitely enough to be able to launch from. And, I was able to support myself and my girlfriend here for 7 months and open up this practice completely debt-free. So I don't know any banks for opening up here, and I believe that is the new way of doing things. And so the whole thing of, like, you have to go into debt or get investors, all that, to open up a business. Yeah, it happens sometimes, but it doesn't always have to be that way.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that way. If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. I love it. All right. So something else that you've touched on several times throughout our conversation is mentorship, or you've spoken about mentors that you've had. So what is the value for you personally in regards to having powerful mentors in your life to help you be who you want to be?
It's invaluable. I think you got to have them. You know, I mean, there might be a few rare people out there that are so clear and connected, and they just channel everything, and they don't need advice or coaching or whatever. I'm not one of those people. I have a whole host of business mentors, of chiropractic mentors, of personal development mentors that I call upon all the time. Because in my opinion, mentors and coaches, they're activators. Like, they activate me to new levels of being, thinking, and ways of doing things. Just like, I know I don't have it all figured out. I do not have it all figured out. I may never have it all figured out. But I know that through the network of the people I know and the people that I seek guidance from, they've collectively got a lot of it figured out. And so I will approach different mentors in regards to certain topics, and as they give to me and advise me on things, I pass that on to the people that seek advice and coaching and mentorship from me, and so it is a not so much a recycling, but it is a giving to the next generation, which is very, very big.
Right. We
coaches were coached, and in the chiropractic profession there are some fantastic inspirational people. For example, like I've mentioned his name, Dr. Brett Jones, close friend, business partner, incredible mentor, spiritual activator. Guys like Dr. Jay Kamarick, I mentioned John Martinez. I mean, these are just 3 of the many, that I seek advice and guidance from, usually very, very regularly, at least every month.
So there's 3 words: empower, educate, elevate. They're on your door as you walk into your practice here. They're also, I believe, on your bio for your Instagram. I mean, they're kind of out there with Dr. Darren Murphy, right? So what does empower, educate, and elevate, what do those 3 words mean to you? And then why are they so kind of out front in regards to what you're doing with your life?
Yeah, those 3 words are what really hold and typify the Source Chiropractic brand.
Okay.
And so they're on the windows in Oakland, and they're on the windows here. Like, those are the 3 things that we live by. Those are the 3 tenets, is that we want people to know that you're going to be empowered if you're under care here. you're going to be given the strategies, whether it's adjustments through breath work, through ways to train yourself outside this office, nutrition, like whatever, right? To live the best life possible. And education is part of that. Like, you got to know, sometimes if you don't know what you don't know, you know? So like, you have to be taught what those strategies are. And, you know, elevate, which is like the super big one. It's like, elevate your consciousness, elevate your being, elevate the way that you show up in this world. By one, learning what your needs are, acknowledging what they are, and then going about them getting met. That's the big thing. And so always talking about those things, the workshops we do here, people are always getting some element at any given time of one of those three.
Awesome. So let's, I want to just ask you kind of about the previous year, 2019. This is my first podcast conversation of 2020. We're just a few days into the new year. What's something, I don't want to say negative, but what was something that something that was kind of difficult or hard in 2019 that came up in your life, Darren, that you kind of like had to work through, and you are intentionally, you know, focused on like kind of like working through that as we come into the new year, if that makes sense.
For me, it really kind of showed up in the latter part of 2019. It was just compassion. You know, I mean, there were a few people in my life where I was just like, God, get it together, you know, but that attitude wasn't helping them. It wasn't, you know, I have a very masculine drive, and I can get in go, crush, you know, like, very yang kind of mode, you know, yin, yang, and that wasn't helping them at all. But once I took a more compassionate role, I'm like, Darren, put your ego aside, you know, and just really connect with them and see where they're at and how they need help. We had massive breakthroughs. And so a big lesson, and that it's been the biggest carryover into 2020, is compassion. And chiropractor, healing facilitator, I do find myself compassionate, but I found new levels of compassion for these people and where they're at, and in my understanding of their unique situations and how I could facilitate them through. And that was big for me, especially November, December.
Okay.
So compassion.
Cool.
Compassion.
I'd like to have you touch on a little bit, just kind of like energy, and that's something else you kind of mentioned, energy, vibration, and I'm a big believer in just like, you know, the universal energy and all that type of stuff. I'm learning. I can't speak on it a whole lot, but I just know that I personally can bring a lot of energy, positive energy, powerful energy, like wherever I go. And I'm just kind of like being awakened to understanding more about that. But for your understanding where you're at, how important is it to kind of like facilitate your energy and just have an understanding that there is energy all around?
Sure. I mean, energy is everything. You know, I mean, Einstein proved it in E = MC squared. Where there's matter, there's energy. Tell me somewhere where there's not matter. Well, where there's matter, there's energy. And you can say that, well, matter is just energy. Everything is waves and frequencies, and we're just perceiving it in our brains as being something solid, you know? The biggest thing in my understanding, and really where I'm at now, is that people can guide and direct their energy wherever they want. You know, you can direct it externally, you can direct it internally, you can direct it at certain people, you can direct it with certain agendas or goals or direction, you know. And so that's why I live such an intentional lifestyle, is that I will give energy to those things that are providing the most value for humanity, myself, the people that are closest to me, and those things that I find most important in life. Building new relationships, podcasts like this, you know, the growth of this practice, the health and healing of humanity, in whatever part that I play in that. And not letting any energy be wasted. Not just there goes a little bit of energy for no reason. No, it's like living a very intentional lifestyle. And I think that's really what I'm finding, at least in the circles that I'm working and operating with, is that's so much more a thing than it was 5-10 years ago. And, you know, if people take one thing from this podcast, it's like, you can direct your energy anywhere you want, and that you are a powerful freaking creator. You know, if we have to go back to something, is that in regards to the spiritual world, that, raising Catholic, it's like everything happens to you. That everything happens to you and you have no control over your life. I so do not resonate with that piece. We are the masters of our universe. We contain multitudes. We're microcosms of the universe. Microcosms. And that when that is really resonated with, and that you are a powerful human being infinitely, you can create anything you want in your world. And you can manifest and create stuff just like that. It doesn't have to take 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
Sometimes it does, but we're powerful. And that's through energetic direction, guidance.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, so we've been going for 70 minutes, so we're gonna kind of head towards the finish line. There's a few things I want to touch on. One of them, Darren, being, where do you want to take the Source Chiropractic here in Denver, let's say in the next 2 years to 5 years? What's kind of that vision that you have for this? And then once you kind of speak on that, which it's going to be obviously in alignment with your personal vision, but so the Source Chiropractic Denver, kind of what's that vision here? And then for you personally, what's kind of your own personal vision for the future? And if you don't want to put a number on it, that's fine, but just kind of where do you see yourself in the future?
Sure. For the next 1 to 2 years, it is a discovering this practice, how people move in and heal and grow and develop in this practice, really finding the needs, the best, most high-value needs of the people in this community, And then, I have 2 new doctors starting in February. That's going to change the dynamic. How do I help them grow, develop, create their own workshops, and be vibrant, artistic doctors in this community as well? And that'll be maybe in the 1 to 2 year range, 2 to 5 year range. We're going to open up more offices here in Denver. I've got eyes on Cherry Creek next, and who knows after that. I don't know, beyond the 4 to 5 year area. There will be more offices because we will grow out of this office, or we will max this office
Absolutely.
out. With the level of docs that I'm bringing in, Dr. Seth and Ryan and myself, and my intention is to bring on another female doc within 1 to 2 years, specializing in pregnancy and mamas and babies. We're 935 square feet here. We're going to max this space out, at about 500 to 600 people a week. So we're going to need to open up somewhere else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I've already had some hits from the universe at Cherry Creek, which is more centralized in Denver. We're kind of out here in Sunnyside, but It's easy to get to Cherry Creek from pretty much any part in Denver. And there'll definitely be movement, but it's hone it in here, master this location, serve people, get to understand people better. You can always understand the needs, wants, and desires of people better. And from there, expand, and I have a unique ability to attract and coach and to inspire young doctors. And so just to get better at that, get better, so that they have incredible experiences right out of school, so that they have an image for what they can go create if they want to go work at another office or own their own office in the future. So create the template that they can build their careers from, and really be that lightning activation bolt at a very important stage in their professional development, just as I was when I came out of school.
Absolutely. So for yourself personally, kind of what's your future version, or not future version, but future vision for you personally in, say, a couple of years, 5 years? What do you want to continue to do for your life and your transformation?
Yeah, I'll absolutely, I'm not going to change from being a chiropractor. I love the adjustment. I love facilitating people through that. Will my schedule be different? Sure. Will I own multiple offices? Sure. Might I go beyond the state of Colorado? Who knows? Maybe. I'll still be teaching and coaching through Kairos Training Culture. I love it's a platform for inspiration, and I'm here to inspire people. Simple as that. Right now, we're growing out beyond the United States. It's looking like Central America, South America is going to be the next area that we're going to grow into. And so beginning to teach and coach well beyond the confines of the USA as well. There's no doubt I'll be finding my way onto some big chiropractic stages, self-development stages over time. I have no expectation on when exactly that will happen. it's a feeling, it's an inner knowing that will happen here over the next few years.
Absolutely.
Does it have to happen next year? This year? Who knows? Maybe. But it'll happen over time, from there upwards and onwards. But people, when you lose sight of why you started, that's where you can kind of go astray. My intention from the very beginning is to make massive waves, ripples, and reorganizations in human consciousness. As that happens, humanity changes. So how that happens, I don't have to know all the details of that. Just hold the space that it will happen. And I'll know when those opportunities come into my world and then go after them.
For sure. I love it. All right, before I ask the last question, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Awaken Masculine, because there's been several guys on my podcast that are a part of Awaken Masculine, and they've spoken very highly about it. So what is Awaken Masculine, and just kind of like what role do you play within that?
Sure. It's a workshop that Matt Shaker, he's a personal development business coach here in Denver. We run it together. It's a workshop, more or less, that is an activation in movement, breathwork, and meditation for men in this community. Every few weeks, though, we are going to be inviting female speakers and inviting female partners and the men attending the group to come and join in this as well. Because what I've experienced in the past is that when you say, only men or only women can come and attend something, not only are you missing out on enhancing the other 50% of the population, it's that it gets this like me only kind of group vibration to it. And so know that yes, it does say Awaken Masculine, but there will be opportunities throughout the year, like once a month, where we will totally invite, and I don't like feminine and those types of words. It's just like, yes, women will be invited.
Cool.
It's helping people and provide the strategies through movement, breath work, and meditation for people to get their needs met through their daily life.
Cool.
And we're here in this office, and there's an emphasis on great music and heartfelt connection, and like what are the struggles that people experience, and how can we be a support for people? And what Matt and I have found is that through the combination of the lead facilitators, me as a chiropractor based more in the sciences and in the consciousness, and him through personal development and business, it's a very powerful combination to facilitate from. We both have a very unique and broad background of experiences that we're able to bring together and mold together in this group. And we're starting off the new year strong. January 8th, this Wednesday, 6:30 to 8:30 here at the Source, 4346 Alcott Street. It is a free event. And so, if you're a man, come check it out. Come get your feet wet, get dipped, because now's the time to activate. 2020 is the year. Well, we say that every year, but damn it, this is the year.
right. For sure.
So, no, don't play small. Like, never is a time to play small. But life has a way of making people play small. We're here to enlarge in the vision and activate people to greater levels of being, to the highest versions of themselves.
Awesome. And then just make sure anybody that's listening to this, is it kind of like a monthly gathering, bi-monthly? How does that look like here in Denver?
Yeah, monthly.
Okay, cool.
And you can find us on social media. I mean, I'm always posting things. Matt's always posting things. So follow either of us on Instagram, on Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Darren Murphy. You can follow Matt Shaker either at Matt Shaker or Awaken Momentum at Awaken Momentum. And if you follow one of those, you're definitely going to see when the next meeting is.
Perfect. And for the listeners out there, if you want to find out more about Matt, he was a previous guest on the 127 Fit podcast. I think it's somewhere like 58, 59, somewhere in there. Super cool guy. So if you want to learn more about him, just go scroll down and find his episode on this podcast. So the last question, Darren, that I have for you is, what inspires you?
To be in spirit and to seek more and more opportunities to be in spirit. Because my belief is that we are spiritual beings on an earthly quest to learn the lessons that our soul needs to grow, learn, and develop. We're not earthly beings that dip in and out of spiritual journeys.
Right.
And so I know, I don't know exactly where we as humans come from, but I know it is not of an earthly existence. It's of a spiritual existence. And so that's where I find most of my inspiration. So is it through the workshops? Is it through the work I do here in the office? Is it through the seminars that I teach? Those all have different aspects of being in spirit. Mm-hmm. So all of those things are what inspire me. And what I've found is that over the last 6 years, I'm living so much more in spirit now than I ever did. I'm being inspired way more now than I ever was. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not like a book or a podcast or sitting down with someone. It's a way of life. Mm-hmm. Being inspired is more of a way of life for me. Absolutely. And I encourage people to seek that for themselves.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Darren, I just want to thank you for sharing your story and for sharing your passion with myself and the listeners today. You've kind of already given out the address of your practice and social medias, but if there's anything else that you kind of want to share or send people to check things out, please feel free to do that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's been said has been said. I continually and always look to reorganize the human consciousness and people on this planet, and that I meet people wherever they're at. Being a doctor, people normally come to me in pain. Well, I don't work with people just in pain. I work with people on all the levels: mental, emotional, spiritual, physical levels. And so know that if you have something you feel that I would be good to connect with you on, reach out. I'm very active on Facebook, on social media, on Instagram. I check emails multiple times a day. I'm easy to get in contact with. If you're contacting me on one of those places, send a private message. You can find Darren Murphy on Facebook. You can find Dr. Darren Murphy on Facebook, at Dr. Darren Murphy on Instagram. Call the office. I'm around.
For sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't make themselves available. Right, yeah. There's a lot of hermits out there, but I know that to give my gifts and give my medicine, I got to be of the people. And so that's why I make myself available. And you will hear from me. I don't just let messages go into the digital abyss. I hate when that happens with me, and when people don't respond or whatever. Yeah. And so I give my best effort to reply to questions, to provide insight, or if people want to get going under care here at the office, we'll get an initial exam started and get the path.
For sure.
Get on the path. And so it's important for me that people know that I'm here to be reached and to be reachable. Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So 127 Fit podcast listeners, I am so thankful for your listening ears. Thank you for hanging out with Darren and myself on this episode of the 127 Fit podcast, the first podcast conversation of 2020. As you guys already know, 2020 is going to be a very powerful year. Super excited and just jacked up for it. If you want to find out more about myself or the guests that I'm bringing onto the podcast, you can find that information on Instagram at 127fit. My personal Facebook and LinkedIn is Quentin Vars. If you guys would do me a huge favor and please leave a 5-star rating and review, and also subscribe to the podcast, that would be great. If you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance you think would be a great guest or guest for the 127 Fit podcast, please just send me an email or give this email out. That email is 127fit@gmail.com. And then another favor I would ask of you guys, as you are finding great value in a specific episode or episodes of the 127 Fit podcast, just take that episode or episodes and share it on your Facebook and Instagram stories using the hashtag Be Someone to Follow. And per the usual, I will leave you guys with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.